Good morning. Good morning, everybody. We will start. So, thanks for being here on time. And all the panelists are also on time. I'm really pleased with that. And so we will start with welcome Sylvie Simondes, Deputy Mayor of the City of Créteil. I'm really glad that you're here and they can do the opening speech of day one of our conference. Please, the floor is yours.
Bonjour à tous. Sorry, I don't speak English. Monsieur le Président de Sexl, Mesdames et Messieurs les Présidents de l'Université, Mesdames et Messieurs les enseignants, les chercheurs, les administratifs, les étudiants, Mesdames et Messieurs, permettez-moi d'abord d'excuser Monsieur Laurent Métala, député maire de Créteil, maire, président délégué à l'extension territoriale pour la législative, qui était retenu par le comité de son engagement et qui devait malheureusement être parmi nous ce matin. C'est avec beaucoup de plaisir que je me représente à l'occasion de cette conférence annuelle de l'Alliance européenne.
Europa. Aurora. L'UPEC, Monsieur le Président, s'enorgueillit, et la ville de Créteil se réjouit, à juste titre bien sûr, d'accueillir les membres de cette alliance d'universités issus de 9 États de l'Union européenne et réunissant pas moins de 400 000 étudiants. Il s'agit d'une belle rencontre d'universitaires et de scientifiques de renom qui, travaillant en réseau toute l'année, nourrissent une ambition commune. Il s'agit, pour chacun d'entre vous, d'atteindre l'excellence en matière de recherche et d'enseignement, comme de donner des clés face à un monde en mutation. Il s'agit aussi de former des citoyens engagés, dotés des compétences nécessaires pour répondre aux défis de notre temps, de former nombre de dirigeants de demain sensibilisés aux enjeux sociétaux, au développement durable et aux pratiques responsables. Il s'agit enfin, en favorisant les échanges universitaires et transdisciplinaires comme les mobilités des étudiants, d'apporter à ces jeunes une véritable ouverture intellectuelle et de forger, au-delà de leurs différences culturelles, une identité européenne. Ainsi, au moment où le monde et l'Europe font face à de nombreux conflits et bouleversements, au moment où certains dirigeants politiques remettent en question notre modèle scientifique et nos conséquences et nos connaissances académiques, il est plus que jamais crucial qu'à l'échelle européenne, scientifiques, chercheurs, enseignants, personnels administratifs et étudiants puissent partager, enrichir et promouvoir leurs connaissances, leur savoir. Pour l'élu que je suis, cette conférence est aussi l'occasion de mettre en lumière l'UPEC et son territoire, l'histoire et les valeurs de notre université étant intimement liées à celles de la ville de Créteil. Créteil est un creuset, un brassage de culture et d'identité, une ville fière de sa diversité, une ville fière et tolérante, accueillante, qui a fait du vivre ensemble sa devise. L'UPEC, avec ses 42 000 étudiants, ses 1670 enseignants-chercheurs, ses 1100 personnels et ses partenaires, participe de cette richesse et constitue un réel atout pour notre ville et l'intercommunalité Grand Paris Sud-Est à venir, qui ne regroupe pas moins de 16 communes et 500 000 habitants. L'université participe en effet grandement du dynamisme de notre ville et du territoire, de son caractère innovant, de son attractivité et de son foisonnement dans la vie culturelle et événementielle. Aussi, nous n'avons eu de cesse d'œuvrer à son développement et à son rayonnement dans toutes ses composantes. Au fil du temps, nos collaborations et nos passerelles se sont multipliées. Toutes les actions, les chantiers, les initiatives de l'université que la ville et l'établissement public territorial, Grand Paris Sud-Est Avenir, ont pu soutenir, notamment autour de la filière santé et sciences du vivant, tendent vers un même objectif, dépasser les clivages et promouvoir le travailler ensemble. Nous pouvons, je crois, parler d'une véritable synergie ville-territoire-université, tant nos collectivités s'attachent, dans le cadre de leurs compétences, à apporter leurs aides financières à des projets à forte valeur ajoutée. L'UPEC, lieu d'échange, de rencontres, de partage et de promotion des savoirs, au regard de son constant développement, est devenue une ville dans la ville, partie prenante de l'aménagement de notre commune et de ses grands projets urbanistiques. Et d'ailleurs, de nouvelles implantations sont à venir, comme celle de la Maison des sciences de l'homme. Mais l'accompagnement de l'UPEC par la ville et le territoire ne se résume pas à la construction des seuls bâtiments universitaires. Particulièrement consciente des difficultés de nombre d'étudiants cristoliens à trouver un logement, la municipalité est pleinement engagée en faveur du développement des résidences privées et sociales. Dans les années à venir, ce sont ainsi près de 1400 chambres étudiantes qui seront réalisées, dont 40% d'entre elles seront conventionnées. Le bien-être étudiant repose tout autant sur le fait d'être bien accompagné. C'est pourquoi, soucieux de faciliter l'orientation et l'insertion des jeunes et leurs échanges avec les professionnels, Grand Paris Sud-Est Avenir organise chaque année, conjointement avec l'université, des événements comme le Forum Emploi Booste ton avenir, dont la fréquentation augmente à chaque édition. C'est dans le même esprit que la ville, comme l'établissement public, propose des postes d'apprentis et de vacataires dans ses équipements, notamment les médiathèques, ou encore des emplois saisonniers durant la période estivale. Et enfin, pour répondre aux aspirations de beaucoup d'étudiants souhaitant créer leurs propres entreprises, nous avons également apporté notre entier soutien à la Maison de l'innovation et de l'entrepreneuriat, pôle de référence de l'Est francilien pour l'alternance et la formation professionnelle. À Créteil, nous croyons profondément au rôle essentiel de l'éducation et de la recherche pour construire un avenir meilleur, un avenir européen. Et l'Université Paris-Est Créteil, au sein d'Aurora, est un gage de rayonnement, d'innovation et d'ouverture sur le monde. Ensemble, continuons à soutenir notre université et à faire vivre l'esprit européen au cœur de notre ville. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Madame Simon Deck. Okay. I will hand over the floor to Veronika. 5 minutes. Who will open this session? Thank you.
I'm sorry. Dear colleagues, distinguished guests, and dear friends, good morning. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all here to this key plenary session of the Aurora Annual Conference. My name is Veronika Sexl, and I'm the Aurora President since May 1st and Rector of the University of Innsbruck. We gather here today at a crucial moment for European higher education. In recent years, the European University Alliances have emerged as one of the most ambitious and transformative initiatives supposed to shape the future of the European higher education area. And we are in the midst of it. This program has not only deepened cross-border collaboration, but has also fostered a shared sense of purpose among universities. For Aurora, being part of this movement since our foundation in 2016 has been both an honor and a responsibility. Is this better? Okay. We are now entering our second alliance phase, Aurora 2030, with renewed dedication to building a more inclusive, innovative, and sustainable Europe. We are already seeing promising results. A recent example is the Peace Conference held this February at my home institution, the University of Innsbruck, a truly joint Aurora endeavor involving a very wide range of stakeholders. The journey of the European Universities Initiative is rooted in the belief that our universities can and must serve as engines of positive change, locally and globally. This mission feels especially urgent in today's geopolitically challenging times. Today's session invites us to pause and to reflect on where we have come from, and most importantly, to look ahead. What have we learned? What opportunities and which challenges lie apart? And how can Aurora continue to grow and adapt in response? We're deeply honored to be joined by an exceptional group of high-level speakers who will bring a variety of valuable perspectives to these questions and who I'm certain will inspire all of us. Dr. Susanne Conze, who will offer the perspective of the European Commission, specifically the Directorate General for Education and Culture. Welcome. Professor Dugan O'Neill, whom I had the pleasure to talk to longly yesterday, who brings an external view, the Canadian perspective, on European university collaborations. Welcome. Professor Fabienne Peraldi Leneuf, who will speak to governance and democracy in this context. And of course, David Itier, representing the French Ministry of Higher Education and Research, as well as Ramon Puras and Sabine Hélin Saint-Rosé, familiar to many of you from within the Aurora community from the past. Their insights, together with the guidance of our moderator, Ms. Miranda Print from Times Higher Education, will help illuminate the past, present, and future of the European University Initiative. Miranda, may I ask you now to take over to introduce all speakers in depth and lead us through an exciting discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, second time lucky, standing up. Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here. And thank you all for joining what I'm sure will be a very rich discussion talking about the European University Initiative, past, present, and future. Now, you've all been introduced already, so I won't repeat what's already been said, but we are going to hand over for 3 keynote speeches just to get the discussion going and, set some context for what we will then delve into. So Susanne is going to start us off. I will hand the floor to you.
Okay, good morning, everybody. And good morning to all the members of the Alliance and other alliances here, to the rectors, to the presidents of the different universities present, and to all the other speakers here on the podium. I'm extremely happy to be here this morning and to have the chance to talk to you and to discuss with you, and that especially on such a nice and sunny morning in Paris. And given my completely incompetence in finding a place on the map, I really had a nice stroll to the Quartier, and I can tell you it is a wonderful morning. I would like to talk in the next few minutes a little bit about the different priorities in education we have at the moment identified at European level, and also try to link the university alliances to this, because a little bit the ambition is to put them into the broader picture. And I will start, and I don't know, do I have a possibility to okay. Okay, then let's go to the next one. So it's not very surprising for anybody working in the European area in the field of education and training to start with a union of skills. This is the new initiative which was adopted by the European Commission on the 5th of March. And it basically is the ambition on the one hand to solve a problem several more and more European countries are facing, and that is the skills gap, really a lack of people with the right competences we need for a digital transition, for the green transition, also in terms of competitiveness of Europe to other parts of the world. And also at the same time, to bring the different sectors of education and training together and really offer people in all parts of their life and throughout their whole trajectory the possibility to access to education and training. Next one, please. And there really clearly our ambition is to support people to develop the skills and competences they need to maintain also the attractiveness of education and especially of higher education in Europe and possibly also to increase it, to safeguard academic freedom and fundamental academic values, to foster diversity, inclusiveness and gender equality, empower people and improve accessibility to higher education, and boost mobility and cooperation. And with this focus in higher education and different initiatives we are going to launch over the next years, I think we are also very right in the middle of the European University Alliances. Because in my view, this initiative, the European University Alliances, and looking back 5 years and the success it has made so already, clearly shows that the alliances can answer to all these points, and they can answer to a core ambition of the Union of Skills, and that is exactly to foster talent, to make people mobile, to give people a huge variety and chances in education and training, and also to be attractive to people outside of Europe. Next one, please. And we see it here with a quote from our president of the European Commission, and she mentioned that at the Sorbonne 2 weeks ago. And I think the reason why I put it, because we are also at the same time when saying we want to foster talents, we want to foster skills, we are at the same time in a situation where the geopolitical context and the developments in other countries really make it important to underline that this is a deliberate choice. It is a choice to foster this and to invest in universities, to invest in academic freedom. And I think for this it is absolutely important. Next, please. Okay, key initiatives. I a little bit described already with the vision on the higher education, but the key initiatives coming in the next year are exactly addressing these different aspects. I think important in the future context is, and to a place to watch, let's say, is of course the initiatives in the field of science, technology, engineering and mathematics, where we see that we need more young people choosing for this career pathway, and also the accessibility of education. I don't want to go into this in detail. You can read them all. Most of you have already heard of them, have maybe already seen papers and documents, all these boring commission text coming out on different initiatives. I would like to take the opportunity, next please, to talk especially about one initiative which was adopted 1 week ago on the 12th of May by the European Council. And that was not at all from the start a given that this would happen. So the proposal is to start and to kick off, and we now have the pathway to go there, to develop a European degree. A degree for joint study courses offered by different universities in Europe together, and really to have a degree at the end. At the moment, we are starting with a label, a European degree label, which basically is giving a label to already existing joint study courses. But we are starting and head on the way to develop a European degree. The two documents which have been adopted are on the one a resolution which describes this ambition of member states to see and to go this way. And when you read the resolution, you see that there is, on the one hand, the agreement to have a European degree label, and there's a timeline and some conditions on what conditions member states would consider into creating a European degree. we might, or some of us might think, oh, we could have been more ambitious, we could have done more, we could do that faster. But we do it together, and I think this is the first important thing to know, is that we can really start with the label. The second one is a document which is largely addressing quality assurance in higher education in Europe, and there are different aspects in it, but there are also the criteria we would like to link to a European degree. Next. And there, just to spend a moment to explain a little bit why I think this is really a game changer and really something we should also advertise, and where we expect also a little bit the European universities to support us in that, I want to talk about the criteria. The program organization criteria, they are maybe let's say the ones you would expect. It defines how many universities involved, how it should be arranged, that of course a joint study course should be created jointly. So these type of criteria are in the program organization, and they are not necessarily contested. But we also have added in this a set of European dimension criteria, so-called European dimension criteria, which are really looking at what we want to do in Europe and what we think is the quality aspect we want to bring in these joint study courses, and also which reflect the quality of higher education in Europe. And there we are looking at things like interdisciplinarity, research-based, opportunities to learn beyond academia, multilingualism, inclusiveness, environmental sustainability. What we want to foster with these criteria is that joint study courses in Europe exactly look at it. We do not prescribe how they do it and how a joint study course would answer to these points, but to look at it, to look at sustainability, to look at inclusiveness, and so on. And now is the moment really to start with it, and to start with looking at those joint study courses we have already and which answer to all the requests of such a label and could get it, and to start with creating simply more joint study courses and make joint study courses in Europe something which is not only for a few number of students available, but in a broader sense. So in this context, we will launch also in autumn 2 calls for proposals from the Erasmus Plus program. One addressing more national authorities and authorities involved in the creation of such a process to get a label, and another call inviting universities to work together to develop joint study courses. The plan is that from 26 we would have the label, and you would all be able to apply for it and get the label to your study courses. And then we would use the next following years to look at it, to look at the conditions for a real European degree, and to look at also the experience we make in the first step with the label. That brings me now to the European University Alliances. And first of all, you can see very strongly, and the political guidelines for the Commission as they were published last summer are, of course, something like a little bit our administrative Bible. And there you can see that the University Alliances are really put in a quite prominent place there. And I think there is common agreement at all political levels, from the President to our Executive Vice President, Roxana Minzato, to others, that the University Alliances are an extremely important initiative for Europe, for the higher education system, and are something we would like to continue and which are here to stay. Next, please. So you all know we have 65 alliances at the moment. We have members, 570 higher education institutions being member of an alliance. And we are seeing, and that is the thing we are really appreciating, and of course hope to see more of it, that there is an increasingly deeper going inter-university cooperation within the alliances. And I think this is the way to go. And in this way, they also really make change. And just to give you a thing which I recognized more and only lately, some of you might know that I'm relatively new in this post of a head of unit of higher education in the Commission. But given the alliances, and that suddenly cooperation between universities is so much in the fore and so much present, we are also seeing more and more university alliances at national level in a town, where universities suddenly also in a smaller scale join forces and develop a more common approach. And I think this is exactly where we need to go, and what we see as really an advantage. The same, and coming a bit back to the Union of Skills, is of course the question of the associated partners. Next. Yes, so also here, and you see the slide, you know the alliances better than me. You have also experienced it firsthand in your own alliance, what it means. But I wanted to point to a few things which we have seen also in a report published earlier this year, and which we think are an enormous success, and probably more than we would have ever expected. And that is, on the one hand, this bottom-up approach and the really rich diversity of cooperation, the rich diversity in the character of alliances, and that makes it really an absolutely valuable set. There is no one size fits all in nearly any part of life, also, obviously also not in higher education. I think the alliances have really demonstrated that they can adapt to the needs of their members and really help the development of their member universities. So we see with the alliances also a new model of long-term cooperation, and we see that this is far going beyond a typical project type of funding, a typical project type of idea. And you all know the debates we have on the pathway for investment pathway for alliances. We have that very high on our agenda to look at that and to see how we can solve the problem, because of course a European budget is a European budget as it is defined, but we are well aware we have to see for a more sustainable taking. Next slide, please. Again, here a list of all the things where we think that alliances are absolutely a game changer in what they are doing and in what is needed also in higher education. And we see, and then that is again linking back to the European degree. What we see is that the alliances are in a way also front runners for reforms in higher education and front runners for picking up on new possibilities and developments. And this is what we hope for the European degree, that you pick it up and that you develop it further. But also for other parts which we need to do, for the whole question of inclusive and better access to higher education, for the question of micro-credentials, for all these different aspects we need for higher education to really contribute to the development of society and economy in Europe. So there it is, the university alliances have already demonstrated that they have this capacity to do it, and we are really very much hoping on it. We are also thinking, and that comes then to my last slide, that there are of course some things, and that was indicated by the report in earlier this year, that there are of course still some things to do more, to do better, and it would be, we are not living in an ideal world and so on. It is not a criticism to your work, not at all. It is more an encouragement to continue. Of course, we would like to see that alliances reach out more in their own organizations, that they really deepen their cooperation, and that they really develop this long-term and sustainable structural impact in their work. So also there it is really something which will help us to advance higher education in general, not only for the alliances, also for all other universities in Europe and higher education institutions. And I wish you all the success in this conference and on this way, and I'm always happy to discuss now and to answer the questions, but also in future. Thank you very much.
Okay, good. Perfect. Thank you very much. So, dear rectors, dear colleagues, dear students, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here today in the Université Université Créteil, and to meet you, members of Aurora. I'm very happy because I'm convinced that European universities need to discuss together as much as possible, exchange best practices, and collaborate. So it's an honor for me too, since I've been deeply involved in the design, structuring, and implementation of Europa for 4 years. It has been a rich experience, very intense, and even if often difficult. Before going on, I would like to underline the incredible vitality of the alliances. The 65 European universities have accomplished in 2020-2021 a real tour de force, not just exist, but give life to communities of teachers, researchers, students, and staff who would never have had the opportunity to work together and meet each other. This already represents what Enrico Letta calls the fifth freedom in his report of the EU single market: learning, working together, doing research, innovating, and sharing. And reading the UPEC magazine yesterday, I was impressed by the creativity, inventiveness, and dynamism of your alliance, Aurora. Nevertheless, we are facing many challenges. I want to share with you what I believe are our key challenges now. So a political, next slide, please. So a political and legal one, a structural and organizational, and an academic challenge. So the first one, next slide, please. The first one, political and legal challenge. This means making alliances a reality in the open higher education and research area, fostering a culture of democracy, and having an influence on the policies tomorrow. The European University Initiative is a strategic issue. European alliances are more than cooperation. They embodies European value and citizenship. This is why we need a democratic model for our universities based on appropriate and effective governance. This implies allowing students, academics, and administrative staffs to be represented on decision-making bodies, as well as transparent voting procedures. Una Europa, my alliance, has made this choice, creating several representative bodies linked to the board of directors and the rectors in the General Assembly. For example, we have a teaching and learning strategy group with Vice Rector for Education. We have a research strategy group with Vice Rector for Research, but also different task forces in sustainability, international matters, human resources, and so on, all with national representatives. This issue of governance is linked to the legal personality of the alliances. The results of the Commission's calls in 2024 have shown that about this subject, forms of governance are very diverse, linked to the geography and the history of the alliances. And I know that Aurora, like Una Europa, choose a national legal statute. For us, Una Europa, it is the Belgian non-profit association law. This gives Una Europa a legal existence beyond EU funding, with objectives, bodies, budget. 12 people are dedicated in Brussels to the management of Una Europa now. From my point of view, freedom of choice, flexibility are imperative. But as a jurist, because I'm a professor in law, I admit that a legal statute allows us to speak with one voice to national and European policymakers and to respond to the many legal issues facing alliances. For example, in contracts, public procurements, competition, financial matters, digital matters, to ensure, for example, the security and the development of European collaborative platforms. Of course, a legal statute is not a question of substituting for the higher education institution, but to take on different missions they are not in position to carry out alone. My key message is to be politically impactful, alliances need legitimate and democratic structure. Next slide, please. The second challenge is structural and operational. How to invent a working methodology to maximize the expertise of the universities. European universities are transforming the way we work. At Paris-Est, Panthéon-Sorbonne, during 4 years, we have integrated the alliance across our governance system. All major decisions about Europa are now discussed collectively, involving legal, financial, academic, research, sustainability, and international teams. We decided in 2020 to create a dedicated unit. It is called Project Coordination and Prospective Direction, in charge of European tasks. This unit interacts very closely with all other administrative services. 25 people are working exclusively on that mission today in Paris. All these political decisions reshaped our administrative organization, our working culture. The new skills required by the Alliance also involve, for example, improving English and another language, taking part in numerous online meetings, producing content, learning about partners and their methods, ideas, and dynamic. Europa has conceived some interesting programs in this way. For example, I think like you in Aurora, summer schools, winter schools for students, transnational research teams, staff weeks, but also we have a Live My Life mobility program, a one week job shadowing between staff members across universities, and we put together pairs of people who can meet in person and discover another working environment. The key idea is that beyond projects, alliances change our mindsets and internal culture. The third challenge is an academic challenge. I think it's a major challenge. European universities drive indeed innovation in teaching, learning, and research. New joint formats emerge. MOOCs, micro-credential, certificates, online module, but also bachelor's, master's, PhD. Here, once again, the creativity in all alliances is remarkable. In Europa, we are working on 5 topics: cultural heritage, Europe in the world, sustainability, One Health, artificial intelligence. We are shaping around 42 new formats: short, long, flexible, or with new joint degree, like the Bachelor in European Studies, the UNA HERDOT, the PhD program, the Bachelor in Sustainability. And in the Bachelor in European Studies, for example, around 300 students begin in the first year in Leuven, Madrid, Krakow, Bologna, and then they continue in the second year in another university in the host language. And they finish in the third year in a third universities. We will award, and we are very proud to award this year in October in Madrid, the first cohort of students in European Studies. These initiatives force us to recognize, accredit studies, sign joint degrees. It invites us to think or rethink what kind of university model do we want, how do we remain globally competitive, what is excellence at European level. But for all of this, we lack sustainable funding beyond Erasmus+, every 4 or 5 years. We need a strong signal from political decision makers regarding, for example, to the next budget, European budget. And it's the same thing about research. On the research side, the stakes are even greater. Collaboration, visibility, publication, open science, links with society and mobility of researchers. Despite lack of European funding, the alliances are not giving up. They are still innovating, launching seed funds, bringing together transnational research teams, and mobilizing doctoral students. In Europa, we have developed a vision and action plan in research dedicated to research and innovation, support for interdisciplinary hubs, provision of a transnational framework for early career researchers, opening up research and data infrastructure and resources. The key message is that here alliances are great laboratory for innovation and education and research. In conclusion, next slide, please. To continue all this work and perpetuate all what European universities have to offer, we have two key points to defend in the short terms. You can see the need for funding and the European degree. The need for funding, political commitments must translate into concrete holistic funding. Funding should combine EU and national regional contribution. And we must move in a holistic approach, combining education, but also research and innovation. Progress toward the European degree, as you said before, the Council of European Union adopted 2 texts. They clearly set out the issue at stake and propose a step-by-step approach. The Commission is involved, in charge to progress, first on the common criteria of the label and then of the diploma in 2029. I think that the main function from the European degree is to remove legal and administrative obstacles to join degrees. We have some difficulties in France to sign joint degrees. And it's very important. It should not replace national frameworks. It must be designed as a tool that complements existing national programs without interfering with institutions' area of responsibility. National institutions must be able to award the diploma autonomously. It's my opinion. So the European degree must remain accessible to all partnership, not only alliances, even if they are the key actors in promoting it. So the key message is we need flexible tools and sustainable funding to secure the future of the alliance. So my final message is that, next slide, please. Thank you. European university alliances have emerged as exciting new long-term strategic models of transnational cooperation in higher education. They are unique in their long-term commitment to building pan-European inter-university campuses. They are seen as game changer for higher education institutions, enhance their visibility and attractiveness at international level. They have introduced innovative joint governance structure. They offer new opportunities for learning, professional development, mobility, and networking for students, professional and academic staff. The European University initiatives brings disruptive innovations such as pedagogical innovations through internationalization, multilingual practices, inter and transdisciplinarity. The alliance indeed engines for accelerating national and regional policy reforms in higher education system across Europe, and they have been warmly welcomed by policymakers across Europe. Last but not least, they promote integration and diversity, dignity, academic freedom, personal well-being, and social cohesion. My final words. The next slide, please. Yes. So I truly believe that European universities are one of the most powerful tools we have to ensure excellence in education and research and to pass on European value at a time when they are being challenged. Thank you very much.
No, I have slide. Yes. Those ones, yes. Good morning. So I'm Dugan O'Neill. I'm from Simon Fraser University. So I thought I would spend a minute or two at the beginning just saying where Simon Fraser University is and what it's about. So we're a comprehensive research university in Vancouver in Canada. We have about 35,000 students. About 30,000 of them are undergraduates. 10 faculties, still growing. I guess as universities go, we're young, 60 years old this fall. This is a picture of our main campus. So this is in on top of Burnaby Mountain. So the design of Simon Fraser University is a little bit of like a monastery on top of a mountain, separated from the community. And I think as a reaction to that design, the university from the beginning has made an exceptional effort to not be separated from the community and to be engaged with that community. In case you're wondering where the actual city of Vancouver is, we can go to the next slide. So if you look at the university the other way, you can see we look down on Vancouver. Vancouver is off there towards the ocean. So next slide, please. It's not in Europe. I've been asked to speak among some very esteemed colleagues who know so much more about the European educational system than I do. So I'm not going to be able to provide the kind of depth of expertise and insight that my colleagues can on European education. So my remarks will focus on some things that I think we have in common between Canada and our education system, and the challenges that we face, and European challenges as well. So we have a new Prime Minister in Canada. The new Prime Minister started just in the last 6 weeks or so. And traditionally, the Canadian Prime Minister's first travel is to Washington, D.C. to talk to the President of the United States. But in this case, the first travel of the Prime Minister was to Paris to talk to the President of France, and then to London to talk to the Prime Minister of the UK. And I think that was a very conscious choice by the Prime Minister. And the big headline in Canada that came out of this trip was a quote from the Prime Minister saying that Canada is the most European non-European nation. So I come from far away, but I am assured by leadership of my country that we're a very European place. So what can a Canadian say about the future of European higher education? So I'll talk a little bit about what I think we have in common. And when I think about at the executive of Simon Fraser University, what are the challenges that keep us up at night and that are a subject of active debate? A lot of those challenges are global challenges, not just local challenges. So if we can go to the next slide, please. I think we're in an age of disruption. And when I joined, so I'm a particle physicist, which means that I don't understand people, only small subatomic particles. And when I came into university administration 7 years ago, I did expect to have a project working on disruptive elements in society. Our institution has a very strong focus on sustainability and climate change. And part of my role was going to be to bring together researchers across the institution to work together on that issue, which is highly disruptive for society. But while it's highly disruptive for society, climate change today doesn't necessarily change the daily life of students in the classroom or the way that we teach our classes or anything about the financial viability in the short term of the institution. And what's happened over the last 7 years is that big societal disruption sometimes gets pushed aside by things like global pandemics, where there's an urgency to the problem, and a disruption not just to society, but to the model for the university to deliver education, and for us to the economic model for the institution. When suddenly we could no longer have students coming from all over the world to Simon Fraser University, we recognized how dependent we were financially on having students come from all over the world to Simon Fraser University. So I went from thinking that the big disruption that I would be trying to deal with as a societal disruption was climate change, to then having that interrupted by a pandemic that also changed post-pandemic the delivery model for education, including a much larger online component than what we had pre-COVID. That pandemic also changed the view of many citizens on the trustworthiness of scientists and of universities and the role that universities play in society. And so it also affected the perceptions, as we saw in some of the slides in our keynote presentation last night, the perceptions of society of universities. Since then, there have been a number of geopolitical changes, and I think depending on which country you're in, the geopolitical changes may affect you differently. I will say that Canada had a very good relationship with China, not as much anymore. Had a very good relationship with India, not as much anymore. Had a very good relationship with the United States. I don't even know what to say about that now. It's a very unusual time geopolitically. And each of those kinds of challenges also changed something about the university, about the way we see ourselves, about our role in society. And then this picture, this disruption picture, is a Boston Dynamics Atlas humanoid robot. And so Boston Dynamics makes all of these best YouTube videos of dancing robots. I encourage you to not pay attention to what I'm saying the rest of the time and just get on your laptop and watch the dancing robots. They're owned now by Hyundai, a major car manufacturer, who just announced in the last month that they will spend $21 billion deploying these humanoid robots in their new car manufacturing factory, displacing the humans that used to work in, or would have worked in that faculty otherwise. And so one of the things that I've been charged with over the last 2 years or so is for my institution leading our AI strategy. And that includes a research component, but also an education component. And this started off as a conversation about, well, students are using AI and they're cheating. We have to have a policy about that. And then with other faculty members, we're so excited our students are using AI. And we want to use it also in the production of the materials for our classroom. And then in still others, it's, wait a minute, what world are we training students for? 5 years from now, by the time the students coming in today are graduating, will they be working alongside a humanoid Atlas robot in a production facility, or will they be needing to work alongside AI as more than just a tool, as almost like a colleague in the setting that they'll be working in, which is very different than the setting that all of the professors that are training them have ever worked in. So next slide, please. I think that the solution that there's no one solution for changing our university to deal with all of the disruption and the change that's coming, except a methodological approach, which is to partner with others going through the same transitions and to learn from each other, best practice, and to advance. And so this happens to be a diagram we use internally at SFU that describes how we approach partnership. And partnership should start with common values and should include common goals. It should always be mutually beneficial for all of the partners. And so in this particular case, we were doing it for making a sustainable SFU. And the first ring around the inside is the values that we would want to share with our partners in making sustainable choices. Then there's the levers, learning and teaching, research, engagement, mobilizing knowledge that we have to make change in sustainability. And then it's SDG 17, the partnership and the communities we will partner with, and the other SDGs around the outside. So these kinds of partnerships that we've entered into as an institution and that we are seeking to enter into, some of them are very local. Some of them are partnerships with the municipality that hosts our campus in order to help them adjust and become a sustainable Vancouver. Some of them are with other entities across the country, across Canada, and some of them are with entities around the world. And they're everything from the social aspects of the changes that society is experiencing to the economic aspects. So some of these partnerships are not with municipalities, they're with industry in order to help them grow and help make sure that there are jobs in the future for the people that graduate from our institution. So for these partnerships to work, there needs to be a kind of long-term commitment. And this is where I think the European Universities Initiative is so far ahead of everything that we've been doing in Canada. If we can go to the next slide, please. So Canada has never really been a part of European Union initiatives on a national scale before. We tend to sign up for partnerships with other countries on an issue-by-issue or project-by-project basis. But this has started to change. It started to change by having Canada be a partner in Horizon Europe, in particular in Pillar 2. And that kind of change is something that we wouldn't have seen in Canada if it wasn't for all of the other disruptions that we've just been talking about over the last few minutes. The environment changed, and Canada suddenly kind of woke up to the need to partner deeply with Europe and with others. And if we can go to the next slide, please. This one is particularly close to my heart. So I mentioned I'm a particle physicist. I've spent all of my life flying back and forth between Canada and Geneva to do experiments. And through all of that 20 plus years, Canada has never had an agreement to be a long-term partner of CERN, the laboratory at which I do my work. It has always been one-off. Let's do a project with CERN, we'll do the project, we'll commit for 5 years, and then it will be over. And we asked our government all the time, can we please actually make a commitment? Can we be a partner, a real partner to Europe? Can we be a partner to CERN? And we asked so many times over so many years, at some point, we kind of gave up. And then last month, to my surprise, there was a letter of intent signed by the Canadian government and CERN. And not only to my surprise, to all of our surprises who had been asking for this for 20 years, that's not about a particular project. It's about being partners in the long term between the development of that laboratory in Canada and working on development of talent together, working on development of new instrumentation, on artificial intelligence, on all sorts of things. It wasn't very detailed, and it wasn't committing Canada to things for 20 years, but it was the kind of thing we've never seen in Canada before. And I think that that is happening now as a reaction to some of the, in part, some of the geopolitical realignments, but also just to recognizing that we need to find friends in the world that have shared values and shared goals, create lasting relationships, and work together to address some of the disruptive change that's happening to society and to universities. And that is the end of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you to all three of our speakers there. That was a lot of fascinating insight to hopefully chew over in a bit more detail now. Now I'm aware of the time, we are somewhat limited. So although this is the European University's past, present and future, I feel the past has been relatively well covered and you all know what's already happened. So I think given our time limitations, we will try and focus on where things may travel next, because really that's probably what most people are most interested in. And one of the key issues I think that a lot of people looking at this might ask is that while undoubtedly a huge amount has been achieved, as we've all heard both yesterday and today, you know, the rapid proliferation of these alliances from 17 in 2019 to 65 now, 6 years later. While that's a huge success, looking ahead, is that a good thing, or does it maybe dilute efforts to achieve certain key strategic priorities? Now, I'm sure there are differing opinions on this, so I think I'll start by handing over to you, Sabine. Can you give us your take on this?
Yes, absolutely. So, dilution. I think, let me quote somebody who is dear to my heart and to this community, former Secretary General Kees Kavenaar. When he was talking at the very beginning of the European University Alliances, he said that it was trapped into this triangle of demand, command, and drive. And this is indeed the foundation and the tension that we need to navigate. So how are we, in fact, responding to the very ambitious goals that are set for us? And can we achieve everything in the complex challenges that we face? I think that it's important to really also define our goals and focus on our priorities. Of course, there's a strong command from the Commission, but a nice one, I'm not complaining, but it comes with some constraints as well. And we need for the future of alliances, for them to be sustainable and workable, to also focus on the alliance and institutional goals according to our values that you were quoting. And for example, in my current alliance, the Engage EU, we are 10 partners strong. We are societally engaged University of Social Sciences, which is a specific marker. And what we are undertaking is a large strategic planning effort to really try and address the values that are at our core, with the command that we have from the framework and the missing frameworks, also the legal ones, to really look at what is the added value, what is the alliance bringing to us. And it has been a very large strategic planning endeavor with different consultations, discussions involving more than 150 people across the alliance to try and really see how we could not dilute our efforts, but really focus on what is important for us and our stakeholders. And spoiler, it's not complete yet, so I won't say too much, but it's really important that we have a strategic framework, I think, with the legal basis that was mentioned by my colleagues earlier, but a strategic framework for societal engagement and become, in fact, a value-driven ecosystem. And we need to work towards broad prosperity. This is an important dimension for Engage EU, and really have this model of orchestrated autonomy, in fact, if I may say, to allow for this flexibility, because we are prototyping, and has been said by colleagues a bit earlier, we are really at the vanguard of many things. However, how do we capitalize on this and allow for this flexibility to become more robust and focus on the best challenges? This tension between the breadth and depth and how we address all this is actually the key question for the future, in my view.
Yes, yeah, of course. Thank you for that. I can see you want to avoid homogenization, so a framework, one that allows for diversity, as you say. And, I mean, the thorny question then becomes how to funnel funding in a world where I think we're all aware that higher education actually, across the board really, is facing challenges in this area. I mean, in the UK, it's particularly pertinent. In the US, it's nightmarish, I think it's fair to say. So the EU in relative terms looks like quite a happy place to be, but there are challenges. So, I mean, I'm going to hand over to you on this, Susanne. How should funding be funneled to sort of, for greatest impact?
This is really...
No, you need to press.
Okay. No, I use this. Okay, thank you. Now, this is really a difficult question and a difficult moment. And first of all, I would like to say that I can completely agree to the comments made earlier from the Europa Alien Alliance on that alliances need a kind of sustainable funding. It needs to go beyond a project-based thinking. At the same time, and we are all agreeing there are possibilities to try to organize that by having a kind of a more predictable funding stream, by getting this amend in. But at the same time, you might be all aware that, for example, for the next European budget, the proposal of the Commission will be published in the beginning of July. It will then probably be a minimum 1 or 2 years negotiation between the member states, between the different constraints, the different interests. And this is, having experienced that a couple of times in my career, this is not necessarily always very predictable. And at the moment, it is probably to a certain extent even a bit more critical than it was in previous years. So that is why we are at the moment a little bit reluctant to make promises and to say, okay, we can go this direction, we can go that direction. We might probably see a relatively strong reshuffling of the EU budget in general, looking at, and you might have heard it all press, I don't tell you anything secret, looking at the idea of having national envelopes, having a competitiveness fund where Horizon Europe might go in as a program, and we do not know in which form and shape at the moment, having other programs, but reducing overall the number of programs in the Commission. We are at the moment starting from the assumption that Erasmus will continue. It is far too successful to not continue. So this is the good news, and also in Erasmus, the university alliances are continuing. Nevertheless, we have to see how the whole setup is to really consider and go in more detail on what can we do with this budget on the longer run. That is simply where we are at the moment. So I can't really give you a real answer or real clear answer on that. I can only say that I totally align with you on the point that the political ambition should also be reflected in the figures in the end of the day, and we have to see how to get the different interests aligned. Maybe I would like to make one remark, if I may, to the answer before from on the are we diluting our efforts? And I also think that, of course, that we have no discussion and no clear view on how many alliances should there be in the world and how many make sense or not. At the moment, we are with 65. We think that is quite good. We have quite a substantial amount of higher education institutions, also in percentage being involved, so this is good. But I think the most important thing from my perspective is exactly the diversity of the alliances. So if we have so many requests, we have so many needs, but at the same time we have so many alliances which can put different stress on different areas, which can address different topics. Not one alliance has to do all. That is the beauty of having so many, that we can really say we have alliances which are responding more to science technology demands. We have alliances which are responding to conflict research, to engage with society. And I think this is also one of the strengths of the initiatives. And I could not even imagine a single initiative which managed to combine in such a successful way bottom-up creativity and diversity with a kind of a broad concept which allows for that. And I think this is also the way to go in future.
Thank you. Yes, no, I'm glad you mentioned the fact that these alliances, they can specialise and they can seek to answer certain solutions or provide certain needs within this pan-European higher education sector. But I am interested with this highly devolved model. There must be challenges in how to effectively coordinate this and sort of ensure that it is continuing to progress towards certain key goals. So, Fabienne, you touched on some of the sort of governance challenges around this. I mean, taking the broader picture, who ultimately is driving this, and what challenges does, as I say, this devolved model pose for instance, governance or joined-up accreditation?
Yes, thank you. All this are many challenges, but I would like to focus on one. I think it is perhaps now the more important. It is on research. The challenge on research is very important because we have no fund about that, and it is a key issue. Research, as you know, is not currently funded by the Erasmus Plus fundings. So, for example, and so we have to find a solution to do that. In Europa, we have created a seed funding call, and each year we launch this call, and which welcomes proposals on education and research too. But this call is financed from Europa budget, extra or Erasmus Plus funds. And with the Erasmus Plus fundings, we have academic hubs, and our academic hubs have developed many actions in education, but in research, and try to meet with workshops and to organize study days and cross-disciplinary research topics. And this is a main problem from us. So also in Paris-Est, Panthéon-Sorbonne, with our own funds, we have created a specific funding with we finance this funding for researchers and teachers in our university. So we can separate education and research. And my message is that we need very much sustainable funding and about an holistic approach about this. It's the main problem now.
Just sticking with you, Fabienne, can you talk a little on the issue of governance and sort of how the European Universities Initiative can be driven forward when you have so many different alliances. I ask you just because I know, you've got a lot of legal expertise behind you, and you talked about some of this in your keynote speech, but can you offer any solutions to how these alliances can be kind of led together, but with a kind of democratic governance structure working within each one?
Okay. I can repeat what I said before. The issue of governance is very important now. It is linked to the legal personality of the alliance. And as you know, the Commission has launched a call in 2024 about the legal status of the alliance. And these calls have shown that there are very diverse forms of governance in every alliances. Some have the status of national law, other tools, European tools like European Groupement GETC, Groupement Européen de Coopération Territoriale, ou Groupement Européen d'Intérêt Économique, European Groupement of Economic Interest. But these tools are not sufficient now, and they lack some elements. So it's the reason why the Commission has launched this call, and I think that now no decision were taken about this. My opinion is that every alliances we have to be flexible, very flexible. Every alliance should have the choice to choose their status or not status.
Okay.
Maybe I can.
I was just saying, briefly piggybacking on what you said, I think power for alliances lies in adaptability. As you were saying, we are very diverse and have a set of strengths that are responding to challenges. And while we see internally what is making us grow and engage beyond faculties, beyond silos, is this adaptability. And seed funding, for example, is a mechanism. And for the legal structure, what it needs to provide us is this freedom, freedom to adapt beyond the many regulatory barriers that we have in each country, in fact. And that is what is really needed and that we're expecting also from the Commission. And I can give you the floor now.
Okay. Maybe I answer very quickly on the legal statute. So yes, we have launched this study and this project simply to find out what is useful and what are the different options. And basically what came out so far that from the existing ones, the European regional cooperation, territorial cooperation, legal entity form is quite suitable, but also not perfect. And the other ones also have all their pros and cons. So what we are at the moment doing, we are following up with the colleagues on DG Regio and Chef de File for this regional cooperation, territorial cooperation, legal entity concept, to review it and to modify it, and to see if we could bring in there a stronger education element, which would then answer to the needs of university alliances as well. That is one thing, and this is ongoing. And the other thing is, and that was a bit also a surprise to us, that our legal service said there might be an opportunity to create an own legal entity for European education institutions. But that is something which is rather the longer term goal, because to get that done, it means that we have to have a proposal, we have to get it adopted, and then we have to negotiate, and then you're 3, 4, 5 years down the road. So at the moment, we are a little bit following on these two lines. On the one hand, seeing that we can adopt the regional one, and at the same time, looking a little bit what would we benefit from if we go for an own educational legal entity.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Just bringing us back to the present then, at an individual institutional level, something that has been mentioned to me is that there are occasionally challenges in just making staff and students within member universities actually aware of all the amazing opportunities these alliances afford them. So at the institutional level, what more can be done to leverage the benefits of these alliances for more students and staff. Aurora, would you like to start us?
Thank you. Yeah, actually, I was triggered by Dugan O'Neill, you know, when you talked about disruption. And what I would say is we should focus, I mean, most of the things we do is for students, right? I mean, this is what universities are for and the research, obviously. So it is it's a very fundamental question for everybody who set up educational programs. You know, how relevant are they at that moment of time? You know, and we cannot foresee the future, not the pace. But, you know, everybody who started teaching knows the moment a textbook is printed, it's outdated, right? So, but let be that the subject itself is already moving so fast, and research can respond to that relatively quickly. What you said, bringing together the various disciplines. But teaching, well, you all teach, I guess, right? So this is, I think, now we have an opportunity here, not that we can solve it immediately, and that's an old question, by the way, but it is a way, how do we innovate continuously innovate our teaching? And I think the tools we have with the Alliance program, and I'm not talking about the funding, or pooling expertise, I'm just talking about, for instance, micro-credential, as you know, as just one of the many tools, to pool expertise, pool methodologies, frameworks. I think that would be, for me, also given that's under Erasmus+, you know, one of the most relevant questions we have. It's an old question, it's not new, you know, that's a continuous question, and also the European degree label or European degree later, that's for me a vehicle to achieve that. And also frame it now in this whole competitiveness rhetoric, but also how we position our, you know, education here in Europe. So I think for me, it's coming back. It's what do we do today for the students? Yeah, and this is for me the very important question, and we need to answer.
Sylvie, would you like to answer that?
Yes, absolutely, because I think it's a very relevant point. What do we do today for students, and are we really doing the right things as well in European University Alliances? Of course, we're testing many models, and we learn from that. But also, we need really to be truthful and look at our impact. And for example, the Engage EU Alliance has developed a lot of short-term educational formats. The winter schools and summer schools, the different type of coils and BIPs, and student conferences, competitions, study tours, expedition weeks, challenge-based. Those are have engaged by the thousands in terms of the students and the staff as well. And those tools for engagement were absolutely wonderful. But the short-term options compared to the longer-term Erasmus and what we have been doing in the past, we're also supposed to address a new type of student population, a new type of needs, being much more inclusive. And what I think the alliances need to think about now is, how are we delivering on this exactly? Are we really offering all this just to the usual suspects of internationalization? And I was discussing with some colleagues here last night. We see also that those believers are also signing up several times. So are we really diversifying profiles? Are we delivering on the ambition of inclusivity? So really looking at impact, and I know some of the colleagues are here also looking at impact measurement frameworks, and this is what we are doing in Engage, and looking critically also at our results and how we are delivering on our promises.
Yeah, so it's a continual learning process. I mean, it's been mentioned already that these alliances have provided a fantastic test bed for innovation, for trying new things, and you sort of pointed to that with that answer. I have read various warnings from members of various alliances within the European Universities Initiative, sort of calling on I guess, European leaders not to overload them too much with policy objectives and saying, we cannot solve every societal challenge, we cannot be the sole driver of European competitiveness, whatever it may be. But I do wonder, given that there has been a lot learned in the last 5 to 7 years, if you have any opinion on where the energies perhaps should be focused most. Suzanne, I don't know if you want to start us off from a pan-European perspective.
Hard question. So, of course, we can't solve everything by education. And that is something which is always coming across, that if there is a societal problem, someone says immediately after 5 minutes, we need education to solve it. No, that's probably not the point. But I think if university alliances try to play on their strengths, on their specific strengths, I think this is a great deal in addressing challenges. Like I said before, we have a very diverse set of university alliances with diverse capacities and with diverse opportunities, and I think that is the point. So we often hear then, we need more on defense research, or in this and this subject area, and this and this. And I think this is an increasing discussion around specific subject areas, specific forms of research, specific types. But I think, as I said, it is not necessarily for all. But if everybody plays his own strength, I'm a little bit optimistic that we can respond to these different calls in totality then, and not necessarily burdening alliances with things which are not really their piece of cake. But yeah, it is difficult to say, and it's difficult to say where we're going to end up and what we have to do more. On our side, we see that there's topics coming up in higher education. We really have to look at, like it was mentioned, inclusiveness. It was mentioned AI, which is a topic which is increasingly important, and we are, at least at the European level, we are a little bit short of activities there at that moment. So I think we are entering a bit of a troublesome time. But anybody else?
Does anyone wish to add to that at all? I'm interested, Dugan, to get your take from Canada. Firstly, I'd like to ask just how well recognised is the European Universities Initiative outside of the walls of EU officialdom and sort of European higher education? But would you recognise European universities as an entity?
So I don't think that they're very well known. Of course, individual European universities are very well known, but the 65 networks that we've described, I don't think are very well known. The consciousness, though, of the rest of the world is being raised by some of the changes that are happening, and so I think that certainly when Canada signed on to Horizon Europe last year, the reaction among Canadian faculty members right across the country was very strong and positive. And I would venture to say there's a lot more awareness of European funding systems for research, but also through that, people are looking at all of these websites and trying to understand how the European Union works when it comes to universities and research. But also education. And so I think even though I wouldn't say awareness is very high today, it is much, much higher than it was 1 year ago in Canada. And then in other parts of the world, I'm not sure, but I do think that the people seeking, so often at SFU, when we run into problems getting something done, I will say that we're designed for stability, not agility. This is design of a university. And, but I think that right now what people are seeking are stable structures. And if they don't exist, to try to construct them. And I think that if you start to construct something as a network of like-minded institutions, this would be very appealing to Canadian institutions and in other parts of the world as well.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, controversial, but given the active attacks really on higher education from the US government and certainly in the UK, a disastrous funding situation leading to mass job losses. do you think, looking from a Canadian perspective, is this a potential opportunity for European universities to really kind of step into what may become a bit of a vacuum?
Yeah, I think so, because, I mean, many of the leading universities in the world are in Europe, and right now, other parts of the world with many leading universities have their academic systems under attack in one form or another, and the most recent being the United States. And so there will be unfortunately, a void created that other institutions and networks can step into. And I think some of that in the short term, what we hear about is basically taking some of the talented folks from those systems into our systems. But in the long term, the effect on the society of the United States, the effect on the relative to what's happening in the European Union, there's a different level of respect, a fundamental respect for the role of universities in the European Union than there is in the United States right now. So I think that has a long-term implication for Europe as well.
Okay. If I may have just a question for you, what is your point of view about the European degree in your from Canada? What is the perspective for Canadian students, for example?
No, I think it's amazing. It seems like such a challenge. So when I think about within a university, how long does it take Simon Fraser University to get a new degree approved? Within one university, with the Senate and the Board of Governors and the provincial regulatory authority and all of these sorts of things. I think it's wonderful, it's ambitious, and if you can, sometimes when we've attempted similar things, it's easier to start with things with a different name. So a micro-credential is easier to get approved than a degree, because a degree has so much history associated with it, and so much structure around the approval of that. So from the Canadian point of view, I would love to be involved in joint micro-credentials or something with the Aurora network and things like that. The degree part, I would love to work on. I don't know how long it will take, but I would love to work on.
I'm glad we need to finish soon, but I wanted to finish on the subject of the European degree because it's such a sort of huge and ambitious project. So we've already talked about the fact the first stage is going to be European degree labels. I know there have been pilots that have highlighted, various key challenges to making this a reality. But it did occur to me that these cross-border alliances may offer some quite useful lessons, actually, in how to get joined-up thinking around something that needs to, cross national borders. So, Ramon, starting with you, do you think what lessons could maybe Aurora and how it's developed offer to the efforts of bringing together Europe behind a European degree, where there are varying opinions, of course?
Yeah. So what I think, there are various aspects to it. So I think one is a very structural one, and that's probably not the most sexy one as well, because we tend to think from education and research first. But I think it's also a transformation of the universities in pooling expertise. And this is first lightly, and that may even become structurally. And, we're talking about, IT infrastructures, these are things, and others, and also pooling expertises within the community. So this I see as a foundation, and it is and it will be a development, because we are very often, the boundaries are, like talking what you mentioned, is often either internal rules and legislations or national frameworks or maybe even regional frameworks. So there are all kinds of boundaries, and we do respect them, but some we need to break, or we need to say, well, we respect that. Maybe today it's not possible, but tomorrow it will be. And that's also a way of rhetoric in a way, you know, so not telling us what's not possible, but also think about the opportunities we want to achieve. So this is, I think, it's mindset in its, and well, here all the people have that mindset, but it's, you know, we have to penetrate deeper in our universities, you know, it is, and that probably holds for all the alliances, you know, the reach within each individual university needs to be enhanced, or that would be my wish as Secretary General. So it is a slow process, and we have to realize it. And even if we want to have the results tomorrow, and even if, you know, our sponsor wants a result tomorrow, we have to realize some processes are slow. And this is where we have to find the right balance. And but it's also, and this is maybe then very personal, it's also about the people who are doing that. And this is, I think, one of the I find really exciting things when I look at Aurora, and I think that holds for other alliances too. So, yeah.
Sabine, would you add anything from the Engage perspective?
Yes, but if those are our final comments, or right, if this is my last bullet, I would like to choose it wisely. Of course, I'm like many people here, very much in favor of the European degree, and this is exciting steps that we're taking, and we need to engage more. But I think if I need to conclude on some things, I think the European University Alliances are great tools to provide answers to the challenges we have, and for education and this responsiveness and pooling resources, the European degree is excellent. But if you look at the different challenges that Europe faces and the competitiveness objectives that has been mentioned a bit earlier, I think we are very well placed to respond to those needs because we have the expertise to be addressing these topics. And of course, I talk from Engage, which is specializing in social sciences and addressing these questions. But the competitiveness challenge, and I welcome the fact that in the competitiveness compass that the European Commission has published recently, we go beyond just the GDP matrix to in fact go towards a more holistic approach to what it is to be competitive in Europe. And we are really demonstrating that we can strike a balance between economic growth and social fabric. And this is our role as well, to demonstrate this with our research. And I was talking last week with Professor Elena Bou from ISAD Business School, a member of Engage, and as a co-founder of the EIT innovation, she was telling me how we are leading in Europe for clean tech. And this is not very well known. We always compare ourselves to the Silicon Valley and how they manage those investments and, well, create those Silicon Valley Frankensteins, if I may say, or so, that are shaking our very foundation and values. But we can produce excellent research and mechanisms, create those unicorns as well. And we can, as universities, really reach out to our local ecosystems, to the industry, and provide some answers. And we need also, as was said yesterday in the great keynote from Professor Blackburn, it was really nice to see the transdisciplinarity at the really as a key to the challenges that we face in Europe. And this is what we bring as universities in European University Alliances, this transdisciplinary solutions and dedicated actions. So that would be my final thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, since it is final thoughts, I mean, I can broaden the question a bit, because it'd be interesting to hear, just looking at, say, 2030, what would success look like for this? You don't obviously have to, that's a big question, but in a kind of summary form, I mean, do speak on the European degree if you prefer, Fabienne. I mean, from actually, let's stick with the European degree, because you can speak from the Europa Alliance take on this. Do you, as someone involved in a pan-European alliance, have any thoughts on how the European degree can be kind of accelerated, progress can be accelerated on it.
Progress too.
How progress can be sped up towards achieving a European degree.
Yes. For Europa, you mean for Europa?
Well,
Yes.
if you have lessons
We have
to offer.
in Europa we have a 2030 strategy. The strategy is focused on education and research, and for education, yes, we are very involved in the European degree. We will part in the last calls in the very big consortium. The name was Hidiat Afish, and we worked together during 1 year about this concept of European degree, and we have launched some questions to our universities, our colleagues. What do you think? What are your criteria? What is about? And I think we have a common view now in the alliance across our 11 universities. And we all are in favor of the European degree. We want this label and then perhaps the diploma, because we have conceived many joint degrees in Europa. As I said before, we have a joint bachelor in European studies, we have a joint bachelor in sustainability, and it was very difficult to construct them. We passed 3 years to construct a bachelor in interdisciplinary matters in Europe and sustainability. It was very hard because there are legal barrier obstacles and French in France. And we discussed with the ministry, with the policymakers to try to find solution. So it's an opportunity for us. And we support the initiative, of course.
Thank you. Briefly, Susanne, do you want to finish this off? Because I'm very aware of eating into everyone's coffee break time. Just in summary, what for you, from the European Commission perspective, what will success look like looking ahead in 5 years?
Okay, success. Well, maybe I also start on the European degree, because that is relatively clear cut out in the timeline. So what we would like to have in 2030, a situation in which member states can adopt the necessary recommendation or regulations to really have a European degree. And that means that by then, until that moment, we would probably, on the one hand, and we will launch a policy lab to work on it, and we will launch also a European degree forum, so that all the stakeholders in that can reflect on the concept, can see exactly what they need to do to change. Some countries might need legal change in their higher education laws, others not. So to get all this on the way, starting from now, basically, and being 2030 at a moment where we not only have the technical possibility to introduce it, but also a huge majority of member states wanting to do it. And I think this is still something we have to work for. In addition, I hope that by 2030, we have a more stable situation offered to you alliances, and a situation where also it is more clear how to combine research funding and education funding, what are the synergies between different funds. I really hope for that, and hope that the next budget will give us, and that was one thing discussed for the next budget broadly across the Commission, to strengthen the aspect of synergies between different funding programs. And that could already be a big help for us. And I hope that we have a little bit of also a situation in which arguing for academic freedom, arguing for diversity, arguing for a broad perception of things is not something where you feel it is under threat. And that is really something which I find personally extremely concerning, looking around, looking at these different very hostile approaches against academic freedom, against research, against diversity. And I think if we could turn that around, that would be my super own personal mega party.
Well, I don't think anyone here is going to disagree with that. Thank you so much to all our speakers and panellists. It's been absolutely fascinating. And thank you all for being such a great audience.